Hey there, welcome back to the realm of history. Tonight we're taking a look at chapter 10 and got a lot to do. We've got big picture AP coming your way. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. And I would like to start with a little bit of the agenda. So I'll start like I normally do with a little bit of key advice. We're going to go over almost all of the key terms, figures, places, and concepts. We will not have short answer much because they're going to be worked into the terms, figures, and places. But there will be a lot of AP advice tonight and some advice on how to get prepared for that. We'll close off with question and answer time and maybe a little bit of final advice. There's one surprise I have in store for you tonight, and that's going to be due to the review game results. There was a three-way tie, and we're going to have to settle that somehow here in just a moment. Let's get into the key advice tonight. Pretty much the same as usual. I think this week, this quiz is going to be a tough one. I'm not going to lie to you. I think the content portion is going to be pretty straightforward, but the AP part is going to push you a little bit. The AP part is going to push you a little bit. Don't forget to let me know that you're here in the comments. Like this video up. And if you're not subscribed, hey, please help me out. Give us a little subscription and put on the notifications. That way you can always get notified when there's a live review session or a new video, which I might be posting here in the future. Now, I think it's really important that you make sure that you read your AMSCO. Your AMSCO was pages 15 to 20, and a lot of the questions that are going to be on the AP portion and even the content portion, the AMSCO reading is going to be really, really helpful for you. I would also suggest that you read your outlines carefully, guys. That's number one thing, reading through your outlines. And when you have a term that's on the review sheet, I want to suggest that you read the context above that term, like the lead-in information to the term, and then the information after the term. Because if you're just studying the term alone, it doesn't really give you the big picture that you need to know in the class. So I don't want you guys to memorize things as much as I want you to understand the full big picture concept, if that makes sense. Number two, like always, hey, make sure you're praying for the right things. Like, don't pray for a good score on this quiz. That's not the most important thing in the world. I'm sure that you have things going on that I don't even know about, or maybe I don't even have a clue about. And there's probably a lot more things that you have to pray for than just this quiz paper. So make sure that you're praying for the right things. What I would suggest is asking the good Lord to give you the guidance that you need to use your talents to the fullest, whether that's on this quiz or at practice or in another class or just in dealing with some of the social experiences that you might be going through as a sophomore. I think those are more important things. Always make sure that you say the prayer of gratitude to the good Lord for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon you. Number three, this week's been a little tough. I've noticed a couple of my classes kind of losing some focus, doing a little bit of talky, touchy-feely and, this and that. I just want to make sure that you guys are focused on the task at hand, being here now. When you enter the realm tomorrow, make sure that you pop in history. And that's really should be all that you're focused on for those 45 minutes of class. Forget about everything else for 45 minutes and focus on the quiz. Focus on the quiz and give it your best possible effort. That's my biggest advice. Number four, none of this is possible without your parents. Make sure that you stop what you're doing. If you have to do that right now and you go say thank you to your parents, make sure you express your gratitude to them for all of the blessings that they've given you, being able to go to St. Mary's, being able to fortunately take on this quiz, take on these challenges that are going to get you ready for the next level. I think that can't be a bigger thing than that. Number five, like I always say, challenges are good. Challenges are what's going to make you stronger, make you better. So meet the challenge, rise to the occasion tomorrow, and give it your best possible shot. So rep the realm, be here now, pray for the right things, and make sure you say thank you to the right people. Okay, so we had a three-way tie in the review game. So we had third hour scored 2 out of 5, not great results. We had seventh hour got 2 out of 5, and also eighth hour got 2 out of 5. So we're going to have a little bit of guests here, and we're going to solve this problem. I have a October style dish here, and what I've done is I've made 3 cards. The first one says third hour. I don't know if you can see it. The second one says seventh hour. And then the third one says eighth hour. So I'm going to fold them up, and I've got two of my daughters here with me. I have Ella and Sophia, and I'm going to fold these up and I'm going to put them in that little canister. Now, Ella's going to pull one out. I'm going to mix them up. They're folded so they can't see the numbers. Okay, girls, you can't cheat. Okay. And they're going to pull a card out, and the card that they pull is out of the running. There'll be one card left in. I'm going to pull that out. That's going to be the recipient of the +1. Ella, why don't you go ahead and pull one card out and give it to Daddy? So 7th hour. Unfortunately, 7th hour girls are out. Thanks, Ella.
Okay.
Sophie?
It says 3rd hour.
Oh, so 3rd hour is out. That means, thank you, ladies. You can have a great night. Bye. Love you. Love you very much. You want to say good luck to the kids?
Good luck.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that means 8th hour is the big winner of the +1 on the review game. So congratulations to 8th hour. You got really lucky. You can thank the girls for picking the other classes out. So that's the only way that I could figure out about how to do that. I'm hoping that nobody gets angry. Last year I did a coin flip one time and people went crazy. But nonetheless, that's going to be 8th hour is the grand winner of the extra credit point. So they'll get to put that on their quiz paper tomorrow. Okay, we've got the key terms, the figures, and the concepts coming your way now. I'm going to go through most of them, so be ready. I'm hoping that you understand this, though. What I'm doing here is giving you like just the basics. I'm just telling you like what you really need to know, like just to give you like that light bulb effect of, oh, aha, yeah, I remember who the Bedouins are, or, oh, yeah, okay, that's Mecca. I've got it down. So please understand that the questions on the quiz might not be word for word here. I'm not trying to spoon feed you the information. Some of them are, though. Some of them are, I'm going to be honest with you. But in other cases, you might have to elaborate a little bit, okay? So push yourself a little bit. All right. First up are the Bedouins. The Bedouins are desert nomads that had a really strong influence on the Islamic world with their ideals of courage, loyalty to the family. Oh, I got a type error there. And warrior skills, sign of weakness. So courage, loyalty to the family, not gamily. I don't know what that is. And warrior skills. But basically, you got to remember that they're living in the desert. So they had to take risks, right? So they needed to have courage. Then they needed to be loyal to their family for survival. And because resources were scarce, they had to have strong warrior skills. Next is Allah. Allah is simply the Arabic word for God. So monotheistic peoples in the Middle East that spoke Arabic would have referred to the Christian God. The Jewish practitioners would have called God Allah. Okay. Next is going to refer to the city of Mecca. Mecca is a city located in Western Arabia. It's the home of the Kaaba. It was the birthplace of Muhammad. It's known as the most holy city for Muslims. And it's the city in which Muslims must face during prayer. So it's a pretty important city to the Islamic faith. Therefore, the term Muslim literally translates as one who has submitted. So Islam is the name of the religion. A Muslim is a practitioner of the Islamic faith. Okay, the city of Medina is important. It's also called Yathrib, and I told you that you should know both. It's basically the city that Muhammad traveled to when he was kind of ushered out of Mecca for preaching about the Kaaba and about this new faith. So he travels to Medina or Yathrib from Mecca on the key term called the Hijra. Since I said the Hijra, I want to go ahead and make sure you understand what that is. The Hijra refers to Muhammad's move from Mecca to Medina. And at Medina, he really gained a very large following. Next is the Kaaba. The Kaaba is an ancient shrine located in Mecca. And it was originally a shrine to Abraham of the Hebrew faith and later became a polytheistic shrine until becoming a shrine to Allah. So Muhammad, once he takes back Mecca, turns it into a monotheistic shrine once again. Okay, next is the Hajj. The Hajj is a pilgrimage to Mecca. Every Muslim is expected to make at least one trip to Mecca in their lifetime if they're physically and financially able to do so. Next is the term mosque. A mosque is an Islamic house of worship and prayer. So they don't really have like masses, but they do have places for prayer and worship. Okay, long one here. The 5 pillars of faith. The 5 pillars of faith are faith, prayer, alms, fasting, and pilgrimage. I just talked about the pilgrimage, which is also known as the Hajj, so I'm not going to go over that one. With the idea of faith, basically what Muslims believe is that Allah is the only God and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So that's basically a testament that they make, which proves their faith in God. Prayer, they must pray 5 times a day, facing the city of Mecca. Alms. Alms is referring to a religious tax that Muslims pay that goes to support the poor. Fasting. During the month of Ramadan, which is the month in which the Muslims believe the ideas of Allah were revealed to Muhammad, and that becomes the written version of the Quran. But during that month, which is usually between July and October, really around this time of the year sometimes, Muslims do not eat from sunrise to sunset. They're only allowed to eat one small meal at the end of each day. So that's a fast that they do 1 month per year. Then I already talked about the pilgrimage. So one way to remember this is, of course, taking a look at the starting letters: faith, prayer, alms, fasting, pilgrimage, or FPA. Now, please don't judge me for this. This is not my viewpoint. I have a former student who plays in the NFL right now. His name is Josh Ross, plays linebacker. I coached him, plays linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens. Okay. Josh came up with a way of remembering this. You can kind of come up with your own. I'm not going to share it with you, but think about FPA. You can come up with anything you want, change the words, whatever is going to help you remember it. Maybe some other time I'll share what he came up with, but I just don't feel like it's appropriate to share because he had some funny words standing for these. Nonetheless, faith, prayer, alms, fasting, and pilgrimage, you're going to want to be able to not only list those, but also be able to explain them tomorrow. Okay, next is the Quran. The Quran is the Muslim holy book, and it's one of the biggest sources of authority for the Muslim faith. Next is the Sunnah. Sunnah is another source of authority, and that is basically following Muhammad's example. Muslims believe that living your life the way that Muhammad did is the best way. And then finally, their third source of authority, because they don't really have priests or religious figures, it's called Sharia Law. It's a code of laws that regulates family life, moral conduct, and also community life in Muslim-controlled lands. So Sharia law is really important, and it kind of, even though this is a religion, in the Muslim world, religion and government are kind of intertwined. If you want to think about theocracy, so on and so forth, they kind of work together. In places like Europe and in our country, we have what's called a separation of church and state. But in Islamic controlled lands, even to today, it's more of like the religion dominates the political ideologies. Next is going to be the House of Wisdom. We learned about this in our change-up lesson. It's basically a center of learning in Baghdad. I wanted you to remember that it's kind of like an early version of a university. It had a translation center, it had a big library, and it also had classes that you could come and learn. Next, we're going to talk about the rightly guided caliphs. The rightly guided caliphs were the first 4 leaders of the Islamic world after Muhammad's death in 632. Their names were Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali. The reason they're called the rightly guided caliphs is because they all personally knew Muhammad and tried to live their lives as he did. Next is the female named Khadijah. Khadijah was Muhammad's first wife. She was a very wealthy businesswoman. He began to work for her when he was age 25. She was age 40. They eventually got married, and she became his first wife. Next is the term jihad. Jihad, very controversial term. It literally means the striving, but it's this idea of a struggle against non-believers, and it's often used to justify Islamic expansion, sometimes through trade, sometimes through military. Next is the term hijab. Hijab is a process in which Muslim women must veil or cover their face, hair, and body when in public. Next term is calligraphy. We learned about calligraphy in our change-up lesson as well. It's very neat, ornate, beautiful handwriting. Now into our different branches of Islam, the Sunni coming first. It's a branch of Islam that believes leaders should follow the Sunnah, or in other words, Muhammad's example, or living your life as if Muhammad does. So they don't care who the leader is, as long as the said leader follows Muhammad's example. Next is a branch called the Shia, also known as the Shiites. They believe that the only leaders that are possible should be bloodline descendants of Muhammad. They're also known as the Party of Ali because Ali was the only rightly guided caliph that was actually related to Muhammad. Next is a very, very small branch of Muslim practitioners, and they are called the Sufi. The Sufi are a branch of Islam that focused on living in poverty and devoted their lives to God, very much like Christian or Buddhist monks. That's kind of akin to those. All right, getting into more of our, what I would say are short answer possibilities. The three terms that I went over earlier, the Quran, the Sunnah, and Sharia law, those are the three sources of authority in the Muslim faith. So I've already gone over them, so it should be fairly easy for you to understand. Next is going to be the four social classes of Muslim society. Basically, the upper class are people who were born Muslim. The second class are people who converted to Islam. Maybe they were Christians, maybe they were Hebrews, maybe they were Zoroastrians, and they converted to Islam. They'd be considered second class. Third class are what are called the protected peoples, the Christians, the Jewish practitioners, the Zoroastrians. So those are the protected peoples, also known as peoples of the book. And then the final class at the very bottom were slaves. Slaves were not allowed to be Muslim. You could not, if you were Muslim, you couldn't enslave another Muslim person. So they're captives of war in other areas, but definitely not Muslim. Also, Muslims were not allowed to enslave Christians or Hebrews either. Okay, now on to the AP info. Remember, tomorrow you're going to have 5 MCQ questions. We've done a lot of those. And you're going to have 1 SAQ question. I'm holding in my hands all of the questions that are going to be on the AP part. And in looking at it, here are some tips that I have for you. Now, I'm not going to get into specifics, so please don't ask me questions about the tips that I'm giving. I'm not going to cover that. I don't want to spoon feed you everything that you need to know. But on the MCQs, here are my suggestions. One of the early questions talks about the Great Plague, which was smallpox. This was mentioned in the reading, and I heard a lot of you in your partner work talking about smallpox and how they tried to discover a vaccine or a cure for smallpox. Smallpox is also known as the plague, and Muslim doctors and people of practicing medicine were trying to examine it and come up with a cure. So one of the questions is going to be regarding that. One of the questions will be regarding gender roles. So how were women treated in comparison to men? What was the role in marriage? Okay, so what was the status of women, gender roles? What type of work did they do? How were they looked at by men? So you're going to have some prompts that deal with that. Then you're going to have a lot of questions that deal with the scholarly achievements of Muslim doctors, Muslim mathematicians, Muslim astronomers. So if you paid attention to the questions I had you write and answer in your partner work, some of those will be relevant. Also, the AP AMSCO reading talked a lot about Muslim scholars and their different achievements. So those are all going to be very beneficial in answering those questions. And then finally, there will be a picture, a drawing of a ship that's related to the pilgrimage to Mecca, also known as the Hajj. What might people traveling from different parts of the world coming to Mecca? The question will be regarding what might that lead to. Okay, finally, the SAQ. The SAQ is going to be difficult. Okay, let me tell you, the SAQ is going to have you basically compare the Muslim religion and government connection, how I talked about earlier, how in Muslim controlled areas, religion and government were kind of the same, right? Compared to what we learned about in Rome, what we learned about in Greece, and then other parts of Europe that we really haven't learned about yet, where church and state were separate. Religion and politics were separate in most areas of Europe. Now, the Romans, they did ask you to worship their emperor, but they still had consuls and a senate, so they had different branches of government. So you're going to have to think about what we've learned about in the past. politically and talk about how that's related to religion. And you're going to have to compare Islamic communities to some of the European civilizations that we've learned about. So that's really the best advice that I can give you on getting ready for the AP portion. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into question and answer session. I see there are 89 comments. So I appreciate all of you being here. Now, let's see. I'm scrolling up. Some people say scam about the pics. I understand. Thank you for checking in. Okay. Okay, let's see. I'm just looking for questions. Do we need to describe each pillar? So when you're talking about the 5 pillars of faith, definitely. You got to be able to describe each one, kind of like what I did on the live review tonight. And basically everything I said in the notes during that section, okay, section 1, that's really what you have to do. Biggie Cheese. Yo, who's your barber, dog? Well, me, myself, and I. I use a electric razor in the morning. Yeah, buddy. Okay. What should we know about Muhammad? Well, pretty much everything. You know, he's the founder of the faith. I didn't put him on here because, I mean, everything kind of starts with him. So everything that I taught you in section 1 about his life, how his parents had passed away, how he was a merchant and trader, and then how he studied and prayed in the caves, and then eventually started preaching, and then went on the Hijra, and then eventually conquered Mecca. So you're going to need to know all of that. 3 sources of authority are the Quran, the Sunnah, and Sharia law. Okay, for the 4 caliphs, really there won't be a whole lot to know about the caliphs, other than, you know, that they were the rightly guided caliphs and why they were the rightly guided caliphs. So I really don't even think there's a question about them, but you want to know that they are the rightly guided caliphs. Well, you know, if there's a short answer, you will need to explain why they're the rightly guided caliphs. Otherwise, describing them wouldn't come in a multiple choice or matching. So you wouldn't have to describe unless they're on a short answer. Yes, Dom, that chart on, I think it's 271. That's a really important chart. In fact, I'll show you that chart right now. Give me a second to share. I'm going to share my entire screen, grab that real quick and show you what I'm talking about. All right, this chart right here, I think it's on page 271. That chart's really important. Yeah, it's 271 because it does give you the full comparison of the Sunni and the Shia, and then it tells you what percentage those groups take part of the world in modern times. So definitely I would say that chart really going to be a helpful tool for you. Yes. All right, now I lost my spot in the question line, but that's okay. 100% yes. Good question, Dean. I'm gonna say not during the Crusades, but I'm also going to say that scholarly, you know, in the parts of scholarly work, they definitely did. They definitely did have a good connection scholarly because they shared ideas, they translated texts, so on and so forth. And so that's one of the things I would say. Like scholars in Spain, Christian scholars, Jewish scholars, they learned from Muslim scholars and vice versa, and they translated Aristotle together. The AP reading talks about Maimonides, who was a Jewish scholar who learned from Muslim translations of Aristotle. And then it also talks about St. Thomas Aquinas, who's really the most famous Catholic philosopher, who also like branched off of that. So There was definitely some good relationships scholarly. As far as if you know anything about the Crusades, though, there were wars between Christians and Muslims during the Crusades. They fought over the Holy Land. So there's some good, some bad relationships there. All right. Are the questions at the end of AMSCO reading helpful to study? Just practice. It's just practice. I have the answer key. You got to ask me for the answers, though. Like, I'm not going to print them off and give them to you. So, like, if you want to go out of your way and come after school or during seminar, I can give them to you. All right. We're going to get back to the questions in just 1 second. Okay. Next is Master John. What do we need to know about Sharia law? Basically, that it regulates community life, moral conduct, and basically, marriage. So those are some of the things that you need to know. It's a source of authority. There's a lot to it, but that's the basics. Why are they the rightly guided caliphs? Because they knew Muhammad. So you need to know that they're both caliphates. You need to know that the Umayyads were the first family that was a caliphate. And then that's not the Abbasids, but it should be the Abbasids. They eventually took over the Umayyads by killing them off. Other than that, you really need to focus more on the Abbasids than the Umayyads. The Abbasids were the ones that start in the AP reading. Like, that's one of the first things that is talked about in the AP reading. I'm not gonna do that because you don't really need to know that much about them. So I think it's rather just go off what I earlier said. Yeah, Guma guy, you need to know about the Fatimids. They basically tried to overthrow the Abbasids. They became a rival power. They mostly claimed that they were descendants of Muhammad's daughter Fatima, and so they're Shiites. They're Shia. They wanted to have a bloodline leader, and so there were some areas that they controlled in North Africa. Their capital was Cairo, whereas the real capital at that time was Damascus or Baghdad. So that's really what you want to know there. Okay. I like that we have friends on here. That's good. No, I'm not going to shorten the test. I already wrote the test, and then all of a sudden they sent us an email the day before that's at 2:00. So yeah, I'm not going to adjust the test. I've already copied it. So no, you're just going to have to do the best that you can. They should have told us earlier that it's at 2:00, to be honest with you. Okay, let's see. All right, looks like those are all the questions thus far. Are there any other questions? We've only been on for a half hour, and we went over more of the terms than usual. So, guys, once again, like, I'm not going to go into the caliphs. Like, you don't. It's information that you're not going to need for the test. So don't worry about it. Honestly, like, I don't think I'm going to look at the quiz again right now. I have it in my hands. Honestly, on the content portion, they're not even mentioned. So I don't think you have to worry about it too much. Here's a good question. What empires or other civilizations that came into contact with the Muslims do we need to know about? There's a couple. Spain, the Franks. The Franks fought against the Muslims in what's called the Battle of Tours. Then you also have the Byzantine Empire, in which the Muslims kind of took over portions. And then the other one is the Sassanid Persians. It's not important to know how many there are. I mean, that's not going to make or break you. No, guys, the ship is not a drawing in the book. No, that's not going to help you. Okay, can you give me some real questions? Like, do you really have? I'm not. These are questions that aren't going to help you guys. I'm sorry. Wait, how do we know? Wait, okay. Any other real questions? I'll stay on for a few more moments. How do we know to write about the ship if we don't know it? uh, so, okay. Well, basically, you're going to get a prompt. It's going to be a stimulus. It's going to be a picture, a drawing. Okay. And it's going to be of a ship. But like knowing the ship before is not going to help you. Okay. So knowing what the ship looks like before is not going to give you any advantage. So with MCQs, you're going to see the stimulus. You have to evaluate it there. You know what I mean? Like when you get to the AP exam, you're not going to know every map that's on there or every drawing or every photograph. So that's your focus should be like on understanding the concepts. Why are you guys asking me who's key ballers? Come on, I don't have time for that stuff. Is there going to be a word bank? Of course, there's going to be a word bank. It's a matching, right? You can't have matching without a word bank. Man, I'm a little worried about the scores tomorrow based on these questions. Yes, you definitely have to know about medical, math, or scientific advances. And that's what I was talking about with those questions that we did as partners, but also in the AP reading, like Al-Razi, for example, okay? Like Ibn Rashad. So the people that are mentioned in the reading, yes, you definitely need to know about. Good question here. So the Franks were not nomadic. The Franks were from France, and they were a Catholic group. So they were a kingdom, the kingdom of the Franks, and they were defending the Christian regions of Europe against the Muslim invasion. We'll learn more about the Franks in chapter 13 and 14, but for now, all you need to know is that they fought at the Battle of Tours in 732 to stop the Muslim invasion of Europe. Yes, we are. Yes, you are all key ballers. I agree. Gia, you're definitely a key baller. Okay, Novi Special. What does the ship do? Well, as I said, it's part of the Hajj, so it's transporting people to Mecca. Ships carry people on over water. Yes. All right, this is funny. Okay, so for the medical advances, will we need to know the names of the people who invented them or just what advances were made? Both. Both. You want to be able to cite not only the development but also the developer. That shows that you truly know it. So that's going to be coming from the AP reading and the text in mostly section 3. Who made math? Well, there were two guys talked about algebra, eventually became algebra, and Al-Khwarizmi, who basically invented trigonometry. Yes, that's what I'm saying. There's going to be a prompt. It's going to be a drawing. It's going to be of a ship, and then you got to answer questions about the drawing and your historical knowledge. Yes, thank you. This is fun. This is really fun. I really enjoy this. Any other questions? I have time. If you don't have any questions, you can depart. I want to wish you guys a great night. Thank you for joining. Hopefully this was helpful. I really want you to do well tomorrow. Make sure that you say thank you to your parents and pray for the right things. I do plan tonight to put a link on the on the bulletin board to the video from Heimler if you wanted to watch that again. And I will also put a link up for the review sheet just in case you were absent. So I'm going to work on those after this, but I just got to remember to do that. Master Ward, that's really a funny one. I like it. Appreciate that. Okay, well, it looks like we're out of questions. If anybody has anything that they really want to ask, or if they need help with anything else, I'll stay on for a few more minutes. Otherwise, we're in pretty good shape at this point. Giovanni, I don't think you have to worry about that one. None of the questions really relate to that. Okay, we got some trash talking going on in the comments, I see. Pretty funny stuff. But we got joking also, so we're still friendly. We're still friendly there, it looks like. Okay, well, it looks like the questions have stopped and the comments have stopped. So I am going to say thank you once again. Have a wonderful night. And then if you come up with a question later, you can always feel free to email me, okay? I'm usually pretty good about checking my emails. They come to my watch, so I'll be able to do my best to answer them for you. Have a wonderful night. Thanks again. And hey, God bless you. Be safe. Make good decisions. Rep the realm tomorrow. Be here now. Love all of you. Peace.